The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between. Welcome to this week's episode. This week we host Dr. Cliff James. Why could independent practices be the road to happiness and success? Dr. James is board certified in pediatrics, and he's also a serial medical entrepreneur, having written 2 books for parents and 1 for other pediatricians to manage their practices to success. In addition to this, he has practiced mastermind groups and has coached numerous pediatricians into success in their practice and a happy career. With us is also Dr. George Rogu, the co-host of the show, and myself, Dr. Herb. Please help me welcome Dr. Cliff James to the episode today. All right, so welcome to this week's episode. And this week we have our host, Dr. George Rogu.
Hey, how you doing? It's Tuesday again.
And we have Dr. Cliff James. And our topic today is, why could independent practice be the road to happiness and success? How are you, Dr. James?
I'm doing great.
Awesome to have you in the podcast today.
It's good to be here.
Now, you're in Tennessee?
I am.
And what part of Tennessee?
So I practice in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is known as the Secret City. It's where actually the Manhattan Project was developed and ran. This is where the nuclear bomb originated.
Great.
And we still have the claim to fame that we have the largest per capita number of physics PhDs in our area.
Well, I hope you don't have much radiation.
We have some radiation. But I don't glow in the dark, so it's okay.
Where I don't know where Oak Ridge is. So like
it's outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful part of the country.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
I lived 3 years in Abingdon, Virginia.
I know where that's at. That's not very far from the Creeper Trail.
Right, a very small town, but the mountains and Knoxville and the weather. It's a beautiful part of the country.
It is beautiful. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you today, and we are so excited to uplift, highlight, and talk about how pediatricians are changing the world with their innovation and their hard drive and their zeal to make children's lives better every day, multiple times in their offices and in their communities. So I always wonder why people go into pediatrics. I mean, babies pee on you, scream all day, they throw up. The mom's stressed out. Why he listen to 20 screaming kids every day?
You know, it's interesting. I started wanting to do this when I was 9. I just loved babies. I loved kids. And, you know, I guess the nice thing is I went along, that was the things I was good at too. You know, I was good at math. I was good at science. So nothing really dissuaded me from doing that. And what was interesting is I actually never met my first pediatrician until I was in medical school. But people were always saying, hey, you should grow up and be a pediatrician. I grew up in the country, very, very rural, had 13 kids in my class, my high school class. So it was very rural. It wasn't something that was expected for us to go to professional schools. Where I grew up, most people became, you know, if they became educated, they became a teacher. Most people worked on ranches or in the oil field or in farms. But I always just wanted to do it. And it was just one of those things that lucked into finding exactly where I fit. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Love every single day.
So the money wasn't the motivator. It was taking care of the kids.
Oh yeah. I mean, I tell people, like, I recently just had kidney cancer and was out for a week. And I was like, you know, if you took kids away from me, I'm going to die. I only took a week off from my partial nephrectomy because I just wanted to get back here. I need to hold babies. My wife, we went to New York City. We were sitting next to a baby, and I was trying to get it to let me hold the baby. And she goes, they're going to kill you.
Yeah, the creepy pediatrician thing, right? You get on your knees and you start talking to a baby.
I do. I just like,
and people are like, what's wrong with this old man?
Exactly.
Not you, me, you know, what's wrong with this old man? Getting on his knees, cooing with a baby.
Yeah.
Weird. Why did you go into private practice? Why not a hospital? Why not a specialty consultant? Good things like that.
I like the private practice just because I got to watch them grow up. And I like, because I guess I was from the country and stuff, I like the small like country practices where you saw the same person over and over again. And when I was in residency, no one would have guessed that this is what I did. I was an adrenaline junkie. If I was an intensive care unit, I was probably going to put a line in every single person. Almost everybody I went to school with probably thought I would become more of an intensivist.
Right.
But I love the interaction with the families. I love, we take care of kids, but to be honest, I know the whole family, I know the dynamic, and I love just the growth of them going from that scared new parent and that first newborn visit to that ultra confident parent, as they get older.
I guess you're like Doc Baker from Little House on the Prairie, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Old country doctor without the drinking problem. That's what we're going to go for.
Yeah.
So,
I do like when I do a college checkup for a kid, 18 years old, and we're talking about stuff, the kid's going to go off to college. And then the mother in a tear says, "Do you know, little Johnny, Dr. Rogue was the first physician to have seen you when you were born." I mean, that has no monetary value. It doesn't generate income, but you know what? That statement is priceless.
Oh, so, like I said, I recently had cancer. And so my families, they organized this thing where they made a Facebook page and they all got online and they did these videos for me. Mm-hmm. So I had, I don't know, it was like 15 minutes of these little snippets of videos of kids sitting there telling me that they loved me and hoped that I got better and that they were thinking about me. And there were even parents that I had seen them when they were kids. And they'd get on there and they'd say, "I know, this is mostly little kids, but you saw me when I was a little kid as well." Because, now I'm old. That's what happens.
Great.
So,
that's great.
So it sounds like you really enjoy the relationships, not just with the children, but with the whole family.
Oh, yeah.
And conversations at the heart of the magic that makes your practice hum. Am I correct?
Absolutely. They know, my families know I'm an open book. They know everything about me. They know all about my kids. And so they ask me about my kids and where they're at and what they're doing. And so yeah, it's very much relationship based.
Did you ever go like down the street or to Costco or to something and says, "Hey, Dr. James, how you doing?"
Yes.
All the time. You're like a roll star, right?
Yeah. I'm a rock star in my own town. I mean, little kids will come and, we'll be eating dinner and all of a sudden a little kid crawls up on my lap and the parents come up, they're like, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "I don't care." I lost personal space years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so great to hear. It's such a great story. It's just warms my heart.
That's what it's about.
Not absolutely.
And metrics.
But tell us a little bit of what you're doing outside of being a pediatrician and building these relationships with the families.
So, that was pretty much it. When I got out, I wanted to take care of babies and kids and families and stuff. And so I plugged along for years with that. And I mean, was very successful, made a great living, was just happy. And then of course, my oldest son had to go run that. He's pre-med and he went to some meeting and some of them told him, because he wanted to be a pediatrician, and they said, "You can't do pediatrics. You can't make enough money in it. It costs too much to go to college now, and your debts will be too high, and you don't make enough in pediatrics." And so he came home and he's like, "Daddy, I don't understand." He goes, "You make really good money in pediatrics. Why can't they?" And I was like, "Well, they just don't know how. They didn't teach them business. They didn't know anything about that." And he goes, "Well, could you teach them?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably." He goes, "Well, why don't you?" "I don't know." So I started trying to take my practice and take it apart and trying to figure out, okay, what was it that made us so successful? What made us make so much more money than everybody else? And, part of it was the setup. When I first set up my practice, my uncle had helped me. My uncle had been a hospital administrator for like 30 years. He owned a business called Surgical Solutions where he built surgery centers. And so when he helped me set up my practice and put things in, he taught me systems. And then as I was going along, I would learn trial and error, what worked, what didn't work, that I needed to look at those things and adjust them. And was always, I tell my staff always, the most important question is why? Why did that work? And then keep asking the question why. People give you an answer and it didn't seem right. Keep asking why till you find the real answer.
So, so you've come down to where you got your systems in place. I think part of it has to be your charming personality, because you're very charming. That has to be a part of the secret sauce.
Sure.
And then you decided that, well, the systems, maybe not your personality or bedside manner, but the systems can be replicated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And so how did you go about teaching other people? You have a consulting business.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I
And you
started
have-
a consulting business, and so wrote out a little, did a whole bunch of videos as far as like some systems that you could put in place, and things that kind of took where you could get the biggest bang for your buck, where there were little things that could make huge difference. I mean, like multiple $1,000 differences in a practice.
Like,
Things that people just hadn't heard of. I mean, like there's all
give
kinds
me
of
one. Give me
Huh?
one. Give our listeners one thing.
Probably
One tip.
the biggest thing that people don't know about is there's this thing that you can get rebates from the government. It was set up for people who do research and stuff, but pediatric practices fit within those. And so that was something that, I usually get back from on those rebates, an average of like, I don't know, $15,000 to $20,000 a year,
Wow.
just by hiring a company that does these tax returns for these rebates. And so that one was a really easy one to get, that
Yeah.
probably took me 15, 20 minutes to gather up all the stuff. The company that does it charges you like a third of what they collect. So it was one of those things that it was a pretty no-brainer investment. So that one was easy.
Great. And so, do you actually still go to practices and
So, it was
look
one of
under
those
the
things that
hood and just
not,
videos? You do videos.
we do videos. We didn't go to Pediatrics practices. We just made videos, and they had a handbook. And we've kind of gotten away from it because when Facebook changed their algorithms, we couldn't find them anymore. We would do advertising and stuff through Facebook, and that was how we found our clients. But then in August of this year, or August of 2021, they changed the algorithm so you couldn't find anybody anymore. And so it kind of dried up. And then at that point, then we changed directions of what we were going to do.
And so, are you still coaching or no?
Very little now.
Very little.
Yeah.
And this is just a question for our listeners. What's the difference between practice management consulting and coaching?
So a lot of times if you get a consultant, what they're going to do is they're going to come and they're going to look at your office, and they're usually, they're going to have their MBA, and they're going to be usually business people. They'll come in, they'll look at the practice, and they'll see what you have, and they kind of have a checklist. It's pretty easy to figure out what's going on wrong with the practice. And then they'll type you up a recommendation, and you give them a check, and then they're gone and you're done. What we did that was a little different was we took the most common things that people were going to be doing wrong in their office and gave that to them. But then over a year time, we gave them the backside of what was actually happening in our practice. So, when COVID hit, we talked about what all we were doing to keep the practice going and profitable while COVID was going on. We talk about, I have a new practice location that's opening up in a couple of weeks. So we went through exactly what it took to build that practice, what all we needed to do for that, what were the steps, how we went about hiring staff, how we went about hiring and finding doctors, what resources did we use. So you get the backside of all the problems and the hiccups that happened.
So it was like each was it a weekly session or a monthly session?
Usually twice a month.
Twice a month.
We had a private Facebook group.
And each one was kind of a case study on one area of how do you do this in private practice.
Exactly.
Okay. And are you familiar with the mastermind groups?
So yes, but not necessarily in, medicine.
Okay.
But I have belonged to several, I got into marketing and, things like that. And so, yes, I've been in a couple of masterminds.
And so in some sense, you're replicating the mastermind model.
It is exactly the replication of a mastermind.
Awesome.
It's just that most people in medicine have no idea what that is.
And they don't understand the power of collaboration.
Right.
And the what's the word I'm looking for, being kind, which I'm not a very kind person, the destructive power of your words in a group.
Sure, but also they're just not aware. Sometimes I think we get so single-minded that we don't realize that things that are successful in other industries, they'll be successful in our industry as well. You just have to change the vocabulary and the focus that you do, but they'll work. And so something that works in another business, like marketing for a restaurant or something like that, it will work. You just can't think of it the same.
Yes. My observation is that, like what your son was told, don't go into pediatrics, so you won't be able to make any money. Those words are destructive.
Now, who said that to him? Who said that to him?
They had a club that was like pre-med, and so they had the medical students from the college coming, and they were telling them, you're going to owe $200,000-$300,000 easy before you get out of medical school. You're only going to make $150,000-$200,000 as a pediatrician. It's going to take you forever to pay it back.
Right.
And so, he knew how much I made, and he was like, Dad, why? And I was just like, pediatricians can make money. Just don't know how.
Yeah. But your day does not end. Your day does not end at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock as a business owner, right?
Well, my day usually does.
That's because you're efficient. But
yeah.
like right now, you're doing this podcast. I'm doing this podcast.
Right.
We're doing this. It's our day off on Tuesday. Yeah. We're not golfing. We're doing things.
Right. Now, my choice has been, my day starts really early.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm at the office for a good 2 hours before I see a patient. And so that's when I do my business stuff, because at that point, my kids are not awake. There's no sports. I try never to miss a sporting event or anything like that. And so, it's just a choice I made that's just not what I do in the evening. I do it just early in the morning. I get more done, 2 hours in the morning than most people do all day.
So here's another destructive phrase. Pediatricians cannot innovate or be business managers, business owners. They can't learn business. Nonsense.
Sure.
You're doing great. George is doing great. Gary Merkin's doing great. Dr. Leslin's doing great. Leslin's doing great. I mean, there's so many examples of primary care pediatricians that have innovated, figured out the business concept, and are excelling at it.
Sure.
Right? That's
and it's just knowledge.
You can do this on your own. You don't need a hospital system.
No.
Right?
No.
You don't need fancy MBAs and suits charging.
So it's good to have an MBA.
Well, George has one.
But you're not wearing a suit, George.
No, I'm wearing scrubs and the stuff.
But I will tell you this: George was successful before he ever had the MBA, because that MBA is pretty new.
But I've been working on it for 3 years. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd do my stuff. A lot of people won't do it.
No.
And you know what? What does it give you? You know what? It gives you a little bit of leverage.
You know what it really gives you?
Business world.
You know what it really gives you? That's not true. I mean, that may be true, but that's not really what it gave you. It didn't give you anything. No. What it did was it separated you from the rest of the pack. Because the people that are ultra successful, and that's where I think we get the loss, is that people think they were done when they got done with pediatric residency. Mm-hmm. Everything that got them there, that single-mindedness, that seeing a goal and going for it, that enabled them to get into medical school and to get into residency and get through that, because they gave up a significant portion of their life to achieve that goal. Everything that got them there is all they needed to be uber successful. The problem is they get there, they get tired, and they stop. And then they never go anywhere from there. But if they put even half of what they put forward to get through medical school and residency, if they continued that drive, they would succeed far beyond their dreams. The problem is they quit dreaming. Their goal was to be a doctor. And then when they got there, they didn't have any other goals. They didn't have any other dreams. And I think, when we talk about, how do you run a successful practice? How do you happy in private practice? You constantly get to have your dream. You get to have your idea, your spin. And that's what makes you happy. The moment you lose that, The moment that you lose the dream, the goal, you start dying. And that's where we get burnout and where we get fatigue, is because there's no joy in the job anymore. There's nothing to look forward to. Your life is, as far as growth, is over. Now you're just looking for retirement. And I see that so much on Facebook, on the doctor forums. All they want to do is, how do I save money and how do I get out? I mean, my goal is to die in this office. If I die in this office, I was happy.
So when are we going to take this show on the road? This motivational speaking, because I think it's not just for doctors, not just for pediatricians. Well, we can monetize this and go on the road and make money, cheering people up.
Rock and roll stars. But you know what? I was told once by a consultant, actually, smart guy. He says, your MD, all it gives you is a head start in life. So everybody starts at the same place, the finance guys, the business guys, the engineers, the doctors. But the doctors just start with their MD a little faster. But the finance guys tend to beat them because they're money-wise smart. Doctors are doctor-wise smart. And you can catapult yourself by just dreaming and doing and pivoting and adjusting and adapting and moving. Or you just continue to see the ear infection and how you doing? Are you breastfeeding okay? Everything's hunky-dory, you're just a doctor. And then you become stagnant.
Right. And you fall into that thing of, I need to drive this sort of car, I need to live in this sort of house. Yeah. And so what happens is the pediatrician ends up retiring and they own their house, they may own a car, and they got a couple $100,000 in the bank and they don't have much. Whereas other people were looking forward and doing stuff. But it's all about, your goal. What do you want to do? I mean, this is what I always wanted to do. I don't have a retirement plan. There's not something magical that I want to do when I'm old. I always wanted to do this. But, what keeps it interesting and exciting is always trying to do something new. So I've written 2 parenting books. I just came out with the business book for pediatrics. I came up with this idea of building.
Let me interrupt you there for a second.
Sure.
Well, what's the name of the business book for pediatrics?
The one that is called Secrets to a Successful Pediatric Practice.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
And so it's really simple what it did. And so this was part of my coaching thing. So, I decided that I wanted something for my kids. So I have 2 kids that want to be pediatricians. I was like, okay, I need to write this all out. So I have journals stacked up everywhere. And so in one of these journals, I went through and I freehanded and I wrote exactly how to do everything, how to pick the location of your practice, how to start, advertising for it, how to do your staff, how to reward your staff, everything. I just wrote it all out. Wow. Then I realized that I am a doctor and no one would ever be able to read my handwriting. So in one of the things for my consulting pediatricians, I at that point I had a book come out. My last parenting book came out in November 2020, and I was like, anybody can write a book. You just have to put yourself to it. And I go, it doesn't take very long. In fact, I'm going to write this book, and you're going to watch me do it, and I'm going to do it in 30 days. So this book is 27 chapters long. It's pretty short. And so what I did is every single day for a month, I did a live feed on our Facebook page and I did a chapter. Okay. And so I would just take the topic. I had a little outline and I would just talk to the camera and I would do that particular subject that day. And at the end of 30 days, voila, book.
Wow.
And so then I sent it off to get edited and transcribed and then published. And that was
awesome.
So I had the honor of listening to the videos. I would listen to them in the car. And I only wish I had such a roadmap to develop a practice, because everything he said, I knew, but I learned it from the road of hard knocks. I figured it out myself. Now, if somebody gave that to me, how great would that be?
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Well, and that was my goal. Is I thought, I've done this for 20, I'm now on my 23rd year. And I've made so many mistakes. I did one subject just one time on my $1 million mistakes, because I know I calculated one time I'd lost like $3 million just in stupid mistakes that I'd made. I was like, good grief, if somebody told me this, I'd be like 10 years ahead.
But the counter argument to that point is, those failures are extremely important in your personal and business growth.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'll tell you my biggest failure business-wise,
Yes.
when I started a company about 6 years ago called helpmommy.com. And the whole concept of this was I was going to make videos for parents, teaching them how to take care of the kids so that they didn't have to come see me all the time. And so we did hundreds of videos, and I probably invested $120,000 in that company. And I ended up making butt kiss off of it. It was just a complete financial failure, except it wasn't. I put all these videos when I would do them, as I was making them, I put them on Facebook. And so the helpmommy.com business didn't go anywhere, but it exploded my practice. And so, I went from making, $450,000, $500,000 a year to making $800,000 to $1 million a year. And it was just from the power of videos on Facebook. I mean, you became like people on Facebook when they watch videos, they think you're on TV. It gave you a credibility. And really, I thought that by teaching them how to take care of things, because I talked about everything. We talk about swimmer's ear infections, colds, whatever I could think of, diaper rashes, how to find them, how to take care of them. I thought, they're never going to come see me anymore. I already told them how to take care of it. They came to see me even more. And then they'd come in and they'd quote me. And they go, isn't this what you said it was? Yes.
You know what? I have to validate what he says is true. I experienced that with our own office because we renovated our offices. We moved one office that's been there for 58 years down the street. And I wanted to keep people engaged as to tell them, okay, here's the empty slate. Here are the walls. Now the walls are painted. Now the furniture's in.
I watched those videos.
You know that I would walk down the street, cross town, and the people would see me in the scrubs because that's my thing. It says, you're the guy in the videos. Simple things. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I stopped doing it because I was doing a lot of videos, a little overkill. And now people are saying, why'd you stop?
Yes. They like them.
I like them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the practice has its own Facebook group. We have 20,000 email addresses. Tell me one Facebook group that has that.
Yeah.
And they all love you.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And I mean, it's just funny. They get to know you. That's the thing is they know what you sound like. They know what you talk about. When my new patients come to see me with their newborns, they feel like they've already known me for a year. I've never seen them.
Yeah. No, it's a phenomenon that I couldn't understand. And very important, besides the renovations, we used it a lot during the pandemic. And I wanted to get the doctors well known. So I would just hit them up. I want you to talk about this. And I get them in the corner and just use my phone and record them.
Right.
A lot of them are shy. They can't do their hair. Give me 15 reasons why they can't do it. But if I corner them into the room, they'll usually give me 2-3 minutes.
And I'll tell you another thing that we're all concerned about is that when I first started with the Help Mommy, I mean, I hired a guy that was a TV producer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was on our staff, and I mean, we had edited videos that were amazing. That wasn't what people liked.
They want the real thing. They want
the ums, the ahs, the warts, and all.
Yeah.
And so our videos that got the most views were the ones that were sitting there and us just sitting there talking on our camera phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gotta pick your brain a little bit here.
Sure.
What's your take on technology? What's the purpose of technology in the pediatric office?
It depends on who's trying to give it to you.
Tell me a little more about that.
So, I think probably the one thing with, say, the hospitals taking over and doing the EHRs, the EHRs, for the most part, were designed to make us do more people's jobs. We were just seeing patients, making some notes that nobody could understand. And so the EHRs allowed us to, one, have notes that were beautifully transcribed. And then now we're supposed to get our notes that we get back from specialists, and we have to sign off on those. And then we have to move them over to their thing. So now we're the file clerk, and now we're doing our own coding. And now you have a coding person that's looking over it, but you're basically finding the code. And so it increased your job. So that sort of technology where, you take the person that's at the top of the food chain who has the only ability to generate money in a practice, and you're making them do people's job that you can pay them $15, $20 an hour. That part of technology is poorly used.
Okay.
But using technology, like I can take the guy that works with me with my marketing, I can take technology, I can take an MPI number of an OB-GYN, and I can take the CPT code for a newly diagnosed OB-GYN patient. I now know they're pregnant, and I can target them with ads on their Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever. That technology I really like.
Okay, so technology is a tool that enables you to advertise, and you're very focused on who you want to attract.
Yes.
You want to attract newborns. Why? Because you like little babies?
I like little babies, and from a business standpoint in pediatrics, that's where the money is. You're going to see them for 11 times the first 2 years, whereas if you attracted an 11-year-old, you may see them one time a year.
Okay.
As far as from a business sense, bringing them in, bang for your buck, your advertising dollar was spent very poorly if you're only going to bring someone in and you're going to see them once a year.
Awesome observation. Now, if you had a dashboard like George does and an early warning system, and since you've done coaching, you understand a couple of really interesting concepts from outside of the industry, right? One of them is called the 12-week year, or the 4 disciplines of execution. They all talk about the same: lead indicators and lag indicators, right? So you're trying to push that leading indicator by getting newborns, because you know that your lag indicator, how much money gets in your pocket at the end of the year, is affected by how effective you are at pushing newborns into the practice.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
So that's why you're successful in your marketing campaign. So, but in your dashboard, do you track how many visits for newborns you do, and you compare it to last year and the year before, so that there was a hiccup in your advertising campaigns, you would, as an early detection system, you would know when to deploy the nuclear weapons from your town, because your number of newborns is steadily being decreasing for the last 3 months.
Oh yeah. So I track everything. So I know at the end of every day, I know what our average bill per patient is. I know how much we billed that day. I know how many newborns come in every month. I know how many new patients come in every month. I track how many people transfer. I track how many new likes we've had on Facebook, how many new people we have. I track everything.
Great. Do you think it's malpractice if you are a physician, partner or not, and you don't have that, dashboard that I compare to the dashboard in my car? I have a mechanic, but I want to know that my car has gas in the tank. I want to know that the oil gauge is not saying I'm out of oil. And I want to know that the temperature of the motor is not overheated before I blow the engine. Do you think every physician should have goals and a dashboard that says this is how you're doing in this practice for this week?
Do I think that everybody needs that? No, I don't think everybody needs it. I think if you own a business and you want to be successful, you need to look at that. Okay. But as a pediatrician, I think, everybody has different dreams. I think that's one of the things that you see is you have people who they just want to work 3-4 hours a day. They want to see some patients. They want to go home and they want to turn their brain off and they want to be with their kids and stuff like that. And that is their goal and that is their dream. I think that's fine. But if you want to be successful and you're going to sit there and you're going to complain that we didn't make enough money, or that's something that's important to you, then yeah, if you didn't look at stuff, there's a reason why you didn't make money, and it's not the people or the setup around you, it's your own fault.
I always tell the guy in my practice that watches the money, I said, if you come to me and tell me we didn't make enough money, our problem started 2 years ago.
Sure. Well, that's the thing is, and that's one of the things I tell people is that if your practice isn't growing, you're dying. If you're not bringing more people in than are leaving, you have a huge problem. And I kind of divided up into, a growing practice, a maintaining practice, and a dying practice. And I come down to the number of how many, you need at least 13 newborns coming in for a provider per month, or you're dying.
Correct.
Now, if you're growing, it gets above that. You're rocking. If you're getting over 20 per, because they plug up spots pretty quick. Those newborns, those 11 visits are gonna plug up spots really quick, and then that's not calculating their sick visits. But you start getting into that 20, 30 newborns per, you better have a new person, because that's going to be plugging up stuff fast. But I usually average about somewhere between, I'm just looking at my numbers right here because they're sitting here on my wall. I average somewhere between 15 and 20 newborns per month.
Wow. Now tell me, how do you get the newborns?
Facebook.
I cheat. I mean, everything I put out has to do with newborns. So, my books, the one that came out with, that's called The Big Book of Why. It's the 75 most common questions. The third of the book is for the first month of life. So those are tailored toward newborns. A lot of my videos have to do with making people feel better about common things that they get scared of with newborns. So there's that. And then we just target them. As far as anything that comes out, I target those. It's crazy. I mean, I can find out who bought What to Expect When You're Expecting on Amazon in my area.
So
I know they're pregnant.
Is there a large Spanish-speaking population in your town?
So not in my town directly. Now, the town that we're opening our new practice has a pretty strong one. And so my new pediatrician that'll be starting in July, she's bilingual. And so she's actually from Peru. And so we're noticing that we're seeing a lot of people liking that Facebook now that are Spanish speaking.
So now you're going to have to get on WhatsApp and start creating Spanish language content.
Well, the nice thing is she's actually pretty good. I told her from the beginning, I'm like, the goal of this is you got to make videos. So she had some trepidation, but she's actually doing great. So we're going to have her do some in Spanish.
Yeah. So we're going to go on the road with the show, right? This, motivational speakers. That's the next step. What other things are you cooking under the radar that we need to know?
Oh, man.
Before you do that, Cliff, the purpose of our podcast is because I am so tired of this doom and gloom narrative that's out there, that's put out by, I don't know, the hospitals, the networks, the systems. We want to elevate people like you because it's so good when I hear you got a new doctor in your practice to open up a new private practice, solo independent. I mean, it's great. It's heartwarming.
Yes.
Well, my goal is, I like my style of doing medicine, but my style is dying. I like little practices, that just have a couple of doctors where you see the same doctor all the time and you get to know people really well. And pediatricians have gotten so scared and justifiably so, I guess, that they can't make a living doing it, that they've bought into the mega groups, and they bought into the hospitals. And what ends up happening is all the money's still there. It's just somebody else takes it. Right. And you get these people and then they lose their ability to make changes. They lose their ability to have dreams within their practices, and they just get sad and burn out, and it just becomes a job.
Agency is very important, right? Agency.
Yeah. And so my new goal is to, since nobody else is changing it, I'm just going to change it myself. And so my goal with this practice in Maryville is I started the practice in Maryville. So I take all the financial risks. I bought the building, I renovated it, I bought all the stuff. I bring in this doctor and I hire, and she's at the top as far as what she's making. And then in 3 years, I will sell her half the practice. And so now she still gets to, as part of our contract, she still makes the same salary that she makes, but now she makes half the profit. And so my goal is I'm going to build these little practices, and I'm going to bring in my goal is to bring in fairly young pediatricians who are hungry and want to do this. But that normally the financial stuff would keep them from doing it. Build the practice, show them how to do it, but let them have ownership in it. And that way, by the time that I'm gone, in my mind, I will have left pediatrics better, because instead of one practice that I grew and then it might go to my kid or it might get bought out, I now have multiple practices that I'm leaving to all these pediatricians to continue the way that I do medicine.
I love it.
That's an
I love that.
unbelievably great dream.
And so, you know, I was like, when I started talking, I met this guy that I really like. He's a good friend of mine. And his grandfather had been the family doctor for a little bitty town. And he's like, you know, I would like to do something like this too. He goes, let's make this a legacy piece. And I was like, okay, well, we got one small problem. All this stuff costs a lot of money. And he goes, so how much? And I go, you know, it's about $1 million. You know, from the time you buy a building, get everything started, float it till it makes money, you know, you're going to throw $1 million at a practice. And he goes, okay. I go, so on my own, I could probably only do about one every 5 years. I said, so, you know, by the time I retire, I got like, you know, 5. He goes, well, what would we need to do 40 in like 10? I'm like, okay, I need somebody else's $20 million. And I could do it. And he goes, well, it's easier to get $40 million than it is $20 million. I'm like, how? He goes, well, right now, he goes, these people need money to park and they can't they've already pulled it out of the stock market because the stock market's crashing. He goes, they want something that makes better interest rates than what they're going to get from, you know, a bank. He goes, and they like businesses. And he goes, there's people that have this passion for this stuff. So sure enough, I mean, we've talked to 5 people. They all have lots of money. Each one of them can come up with the $40 million on their own. You pay them off over the time. Sometimes they want some of the partial ownership. Sometimes they just don't want anything besides favorable interest rates. And so at this point, you know, you start looking, you take those people, those finances, the private equity firms or angel investors, and you see which one fits the terms that I want the best. But right now they're throwing money at stuff, you know, like when you talk about building your own EHR, an EHR is valued at 30 times profit. So with us, we'll take our EHR, we'll build it, we'll put it in all the clinics. We make money because of the EHR because it's in there. At that moment, then we can sell the EHR because it's going to be made just for pediatricians. And it's going to be made for this flow so that it flows efficiently through a pediatric system with all the glitches. So, you know, all the money that we invest in that, because it costs about $600,000 to build an EHR.
Yeah. Well,
to build a good one that has all your billing components and everything in it.
You're a fascinating, charismatic character. And it is so great to see a pediatrician not only succeeding, but looking outside the box to make our profession stand strong and continue to serve the needs of children. Because if we die as independent pediatricians, there will be no competition. And when there's no competition, there is no quality and there's no customer attention.
And I think we just do it better.
We do.
It's all it's great. It's awesome. So I think this is probably we're going to need a couple episodes with you and some webinars and a speaking engagement. We're going to hit the big cities and do the road show and motivate people to get up and get excited about this. But it has been a wonderful, wonderful time with you. I am so grateful that you came on the podcast as our guest. And you're doing amazing things. You made my week. I am so happy for your success.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that everybody should take, there is nothing amazing about me. There's not. I'm a normal guy from, you know, the middle of the country. It's just that you take a dream and you take a passion, and that same thing that got you through to this point, if you just put that drive toward anything, and you know that you're doing good and that you know you can make a change in things, and you never lose sight of it, anybody can accomplish it. It's the same thing as like when we were in medical school. You don't have to be a genius to go to medical school. No. You just have to be stubborn. Persistent. That's the same thing with all this. If you have stubborn determination, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not geniuses. We're not.
No, we're not. But you have great attitude, and that is not attitude. Passion. No, he has great attitude. He sees a dream. He's not afraid of chasing the dream. If he fails, he learns from his failures, and he's not bitter and blaming CVS or pediatricians or, private equity, whatever. You can blame whatever boogeyman you want.
It's easy to blame. I mean, I remember when they were talking on the listservs about, oh my God, the urgent cares are going to take our breakfast.
Yeah.
Everybody's complaining this and that. They did it to themselves. My group, I made an urgent care. We made our own urgent care.
That's right.
Sure.
Easy to do. Very easy to do.
So it's been a very uplifting and fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I think it's great. I want to leave you with this question. So your son is in medical school, right?
No, he's interviewing right now. Sending his applications last month.
Great. My son just finished his first year in medical school. Are you going to tell him to go to pediatrics?
So that's what he wants to do.
Oh, are you going to tell him it's a good idea or not?
I didn't,
because I get a lot of people that'll say, I'll never tell my kid to go into medicine.
My goal was, I always wanted him to do what he wanted to do. He's always said he wanted to do this. His mom, his mom and I got divorced. His mom is on the other end of the spectrum. She's a radiologist. She hates every day of her life. She hates her existence. And so a couple of years ago, she goes, you need to sit down and talk to him. And she goes, you need to tell him that this is the way you do this is not the way pediatrics is run. Because you just have to understand, this is the way I dress. I dress in t-shirts and blue jeans. In the summer, I'll wear shorts and flip-flops. It's my kingdom. I get to dress however the hell I want to. So she goes, you need to tell him that this is not the way it works. And I was like, okay. So I called him, and he was at college at the time, and I go, buddy, mama wants me to tell you that this is not the way pediatrics works. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, it gets into medical school, you're going to have to dress up. He goes, okay, I look good dressed up. And I was like, they won't always let you wear blue jeans and t-shirts. They might make you wear a jacket or something. He goes, well, if I come back to you and work with you, can I dress like you do? Yes.
That's the
thing. He goes, can I act like you? Yes. He goes, so what's the point? I go, I guess I don't have one. So then his mom goes, did you have a talk with him? Yes. Is he okay with it? He seems fine.
Well, I really want to ask you to come back to the podcast or more conversations. I
don't have a problem talking. So.
Awesome.
Okay. I think we got to make him a co-host.
Well, maybe we have to. I think we need to go on the road as motivational speaker. It would be fascinating and find other ways of collaborating, because some of the ideas that you have, we've also talked about, but we got to lift them up so more people know about it, so more people hear about it.
Well, the biggest thing is get to know people, find out who you're around, use your people. They'll teach you stuff. Everybody probably lives in nice neighborhoods and goes to nice schools. Well, all those people, they do stuff, and they can teach you so many things.
Yes. Great. Well, it's been great having this episode. We have to cut it short because of time restraints, but we will have you back if you are willing to come back and talk some more with us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Everybody have a wonderful day and keep on taking care of those kids and keep that smile.
Keep that smile. It's all about smiling.
Yes.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
Thanks.